If you think traveling to the US is still exciting for millions of tourists, especially Canadians, think again. I will not go to the United States while Donald Trump is in power. About 30 to 50% of the tours my company gives are for Canadian high school groups. We will feel a big loss at the end of the season if they don't come this year. In less than a year, more than 5 million Canadians who were once loyal visitors to the US have stopped coming. Places that used to welcome them with smiles and morning coffee are now full of empty chairs and closed doors. Some tourist towns that get half of their income from Canadian visitors are now close to going bankrupt. Even the places once called winter paradise now look empty, like the pandemic never ended. The scariest thing is, many people don't even notice what's happening until it's too late. In this video, we will explore 10 US states that are at risk of collapse because of a quiet travel boycott by Canada, our oldest friend. Stay tuned, because some of the states on this list might surprise you. Let's begin with California. Do you think California is strong enough to survive anything? Then think about this. One of its highest spending tourist groups has quietly disappeared. They left behind brightly lit streets with no people walking on them. At its peak, nearly 1 million Canadians visited California each year. They came from places like Vancouver, Toronto, and Quebec. They came to enjoy Napa Valley wines, sandy beaches, and Hollywood dreams. But in 2025, hotels in San Francisco and San Diego reported a 20 to 30% drop in bookings. Hollywood tours had to cancel trips. Souvenir shops on Venice Beach started closing earlier. It's not just because of high prices or expensive flight tickets. Canadians are starting to feel unwelcome. They mention immigration policies, trade problems, and culture clashes. Things don't feel the same anymore. Also, the exchange rate is hurting them. The Canadian dollar is weaker now. That means their trip costs more. One Canadian said, "Why should I pay 30% more for the same dinner, when I can get better service in Portugal?" People in California's service industry are worried. A bakery owner in Santa Monica shared her story. She said, "Every March, I got cake orders from a Canadian family. They stayed here for 3 weeks every year. But this year, they didn't come. Sales have dropped." Her shop used to be full of tourists. Now, only a few locals come by. She's thinking about closing for good. California may still be a symbol of the American dream. But even symbols can fade if they lose the small things that make them special. When trust between Canada and the US starts to fade, the loss is not just money. It's the loss of a friendship once built on smiles, kindness, and warm winter vacations. If California wants to keep its great tourist seasons, it needs to think about more than just money. It needs to rebuild trust and reconnect with those who once called it their second home. California is still beautiful. But if no one comes to admire it, does that beauty still matter? Now let's talk about Texas. If you think Texas only depends on oil, cattle, and barbecue, think again. There is another group of people who quietly support thousands of businesses. And they are now leaving without saying a word. In 2024, more than 1 million Canadians visited Texas. Not just the big cities like Houston, Austin, and Dallas. They also went to small border towns. But in 2025, the number of Canadian visitors dropped. RV parks are almost empty. Restaurants in San Antonio are open for fewer hours. Rental car companies have too many cars and not enough customers. In towns that were once full of Canadian snowbirds, parking lots are empty. Gas stations are quiet. Hotels have stopped hiring seasonal staff. Why is this happening? It's not only the economy. Some Canadians now see Texas as more conservative. They don't feel as comfortable as before. Inflation and uncertain politics have made them think more before traveling. One Canadian family who used to camp in Texas every year said, "We still love Texas and the people here. But now it doesn't feel like home anymore." For Texans, this is not just a money problem. It's also a loss of connection. They are losing the people who once called Texas their second home. A limo driver in Austin has been driving Canadian visitors for 22 years. He remembers them all. They were generous with tips and always took pictures before leaving. He said, "Every February, I used to have a full schedule, driving guests from the airport to Texas festivals. But this year, I had fewer than 10 Canadian rides. My wife had to quit her part-time job because our income dropped. Everything is changing too fast." Texas has always stood for freedom, openness, and Southern hospitality. But now, it is losing even its most loyal visitors. When a state forgets the people who support its tourism, that tourism will slowly die. Just like the dry Texas desert. To save local towns, drivers, and restaurants, Texas needs more than travel ads. It needs to listen. It needs a warm and honest, "Welcome back." It needs to say, "We still value you, just like before." Because if we don't act now, those familiar Canadian faces may never return. And Texas may find its warm winters much lonelier than before. Now let's look at Las Vegas. Las Vegas never sleeps. But when Canadian tourists stopped coming, the city began to lose sleep too. Sleep over money, over jobs, and over a new fear. In 2024, more than 1.7 million Canadians visited Nevada. Most of them went to Las Vegas, Reno, and casino resorts. These weren't first-time visitors. They were regulars. They knew the rooms. They knew the front desk staff. They stayed longer. They spent more. And they always came back. But by 2025, everything changed. The hotels along the Las Vegas Strip used to be 90% full during the busy season. Now they are only 50% full. Flights from Canada have been reduced or even cancelled. Restaurants, casinos, and convention centers are losing money. To survive, many are offering big weekday discounts. What made one of America's top tourist spots face such hard times? If you've ever spoken to Canadians, you'll know that they once saw Las Vegas as their second playground. But now, they don't feel the same anymore. They feel that Las Vegas no longer matches their values or culture. Some even worry about their personal safety. Also, things are more expensive now. Airfares are high. Restaurant prices have gone up. And Canada doesn't feel respected in US foreign policy. So, Canadians are now choosing to visit Europe, Mexico, or just stay at home. A regular visitor from Calgary said, "Las Vegas now feels like a party we're no longer invited to. Drivers, casino workers, and tour guides are the heart of tourism in Las Vegas. And when loyal customers disappear, they are the first to feel the shock." A waitress at an old buffet on the Strip said, "Every spring, I used to see my Canadian guests. They were always cheerful and generous with tips. But this year, none of them came. My working hours were cut. My income was cut in half. Now I'm worried about my whole family's future." Las Vegas used to be a place where people forgot about time. But now, time is reminding us that no one is invincible. A city that depends on tourism cannot survive if it loses the people who come back year after year. Even if they only stay a few weeks. Nevada can't survive just with bright lights. What matters more now is safety, sincerity, and respect. It's time for Las Vegas and the whole state to rebuild trust. Not as a business trick, but as a way to survive. Because when the lights stay on, but no one is there to admire them, that's the real danger. Let's now talk about New York. When people think of New York, they imagine Manhattan's busy streets. But many small towns in upstate New York used to depend on every car that crossed the border from Ontario. Now, those cars don't come anymore. In 2024, Canadians made up the largest group of international visitors to New York. They especially visited places like Niagara Falls, Lake George, and lakeside towns. But in just 1 year, those tourist numbers dropped by 30 to 50%. Hotels that were once full in the spring are now empty. Lakeside restaurants close early on weekends. Duty-free shops have no customers. Border crossings like Buffalo or Alexandria Bay now have parking lots full of birds, not people. For Canadians, New York used to be the perfect weekend trip. It was nearby, easy to visit, and affordable. But now, prices are going up. Border rules feel strict. The welcome doesn't feel warm anymore. So they choose to stay home or go somewhere else. The areas outside the big city are the ones suffering the most. They depended on those quick visits and cross-border shopping. A person from Montreal said, "We don't go anymore because it feels like no one wants us. We used to bring joy, money, and connection." For New Yorkers, those Quebec and Ottawa drivers were not just tourists. They were a part of happy summer memories. Now that they're gone, the emptiness feels even colder than winter. A boat rental shop owner at Lake George shared his story. Last year, he had to buy 12 extra boats because business was booming. This year, he sat all day without getting a single phone call. His son told him to sell the boats, but he couldn't do it. He's still hoping the Canadians will return. New York City still shines with lights and millions of tourists. But the small towns and border areas are quietly suffering. A state can't survive with just one city. And a community cannot be strong if it's forgotten. New York needs to listen to people outside the city. It's not just about promoting tourism. It's about rebuilding emotional bridges across the border. Because if we lose the neighbors who once loved us, then the New York dream will become nothing more than an old postcard in a dusty drawer. Now let's talk about Arizona. People often joke that Arizona doesn't have a real winter. But this winter feels very different. The people who once made it warm and happy are gone. Arizona used to be a winter paradise for tens of thousands of Canadians. Most were retirees trying to escape the cold. They bought houses. They rented RVs. They played golf every morning. They brought life to small towns like Yuma, Mesa, and Tucson. But by 2025, that has changed. RV parks that were once booked a year in advance are now completely empty. The Canadian RV community is facing the highest vacancy rate in 10 years. Golf courses say play has dropped by up to 40%. Even supermarkets have stopped ordering special items for Canadian customers. Popular teas and familiar cookies no longer sell like they used to. Canadians still love the sun. But they are no longer choosing Arizona. And the reason is clear. After the pandemic, many people feel nervous. Health and personal freedom issues have become political. That makes many Canadian visitors uncomfortable. Arizona still has the sun and the beauty. But now, it needs something more. It needs to make people feel safe, respected, and welcome again. Only then can Arizona bring back the people who once made its winters shine. Along with that, the debates around immigrant rights are making older Canadian tourists feel unwelcome in Arizona. The rising cost of travel, health insurance, and the weak Canadian dollar have also made warm winter trips harder to afford. A retired couple in British Columbia said, "I used to call Arizona home every winter. Now, I'm not sure if I'm still welcome there." Many people in Arizona also feel sad about this change. The owner of a small cafe in Tucson said, "Canadian snowbirds used to come early in the morning, smiling and kind. They ordered a lot and always said thank you. I remember their warm voices. This year, the sun is still shining, but my heart feels colder than ever." Arizona can keep its sunshine, but if tourists feel pushed away, they won't come back. Towns that once thrived from winter visitors now feel like empty movie sets. Beautiful, but with no audience. When a community that relied on returning visitors starts to feel forgotten, it's a warning that we've lost more than money. Arizona needs to remember that warm winters come not just from the weather, but also from how we treat others. Let's bring back the smiles, open the doors, and show Canadians they're still appreciated. This isn't just a tourism idea, it's a way to restore a part of Arizona's heart. Just a short drive from Vancouver, and you reach Seattle. But now, that border feels like a wall. Millions of Canadians are no longer crossing. Washington used to be the #1 destination for Canadians traveling by road, especially from British Columbia. In 2024, over 3 million Canadians crossed the border at Peace Arch, Sumas, and Blaine to shop, vacation, and drink coffee in Seattle. By 2025, the malls in Bellingham were empty. Gas stations near the border had no lines. The Tulip outlet cut 30% of its staff. Farmers markets lost money due to unsold items. A local store owner said, "We buy products, but no one is coming to shop." It's that simple. Washington used to feel like Vancouver's backyard, a place to buy gas, shop, and enjoy weekends. But now, Canadians see that a tank of gas in the US is 25 to 30% more expensive due to exchange rates. Post-COVID border controls are still strict and cause stress. Washington has always been more than just a state. It was a bridge between two countries. When the bridge of trust breaks, small towns suffer the most. Each Canadian car that used to cross brought life to these areas. Washington doesn't need a big ad campaign. Sometimes, all you need to say is, "We miss you." That simple message can bring people back. That's how bakeries, gas stations, and cafes can live again. Not just with money, but with hope. If Washington no longer feels like a friendly neighbor, what is left after the trees and roads? Canadians used to call going to Michigan a familiar trip. They crossed the Ambassador Bridge, shopped, had lunch, and returned the same day. In 2025, millions of Canadians stopped coming to Michigan. This change is hurting the state's economy. In 2024, many visitors from Ontario crossed into Michigan. They went shopping in Detroit, visited Mackinac Island, fished in Traverse City, or ate in Port Huron and Sault Ste. Marie. In 2025, the ferry from Canada to Michigan was so empty they reduced the number of trips. Motels near the border lost 20 to 30% in revenue. Duty-free shops, gas stations, and restaurants saw their lowest income in 10 years. Some towns cut staff, closed early, or even cancelled festivals made for Canadians. The connection between Ontario and Michigan used to be strong, like the lakes that connect them. Now that bond is quietly fading. High exchange rates make shopping in the US expensive. Strict customs and border controls turn easy trips into a headache. Michigan needs to think about what its small towns are losing. It's not just money. It's friendship. A kind invitation, a campaign to reconnect, and easier travel rules could bring people back. Because if the bridges are still there but no one wants to cross, are we really connected? Or are we just standing apart, looking at each other? Maine is a coastal state known for summers loved by people who call it a second home. But in 2025, campsites were empty during peak season for the first time in 20 years. Bay cruise tours lost money due to not enough passengers. Seafood shops, ice cream stores, and inns closed earlier than usual. Tourist areas didn't hire seasonal workers because Canadians didn't come. Maine doesn't have flashy theme parks or casinos. It offers calm, nature, and a peaceful lifestyle. Canadians used to love that more than anyone. But in 2025, border issues weren't fully fixed. Travel costs went up. People also worried about friendliness in the US due to politics. So, Canadians stayed home or went elsewhere. When a town depends on return visitors and no one returns, it loses more than just money. It loses a part of its identity. Maine doesn't need to promote its beauty. Everyone knows it's beautiful. What it needs to say again is, "Canadians, you're welcome here." A campaign in Quebec or New Brunswick could help bring back the lights in the lighthouses. Because if no one returns, Maine's peace becomes silence. South Carolina, especially Myrtle Beach, once welcomed hundreds of thousands of Canadians every year. Many were snowbirds and retirees. But in 2025, winter cancellations went up by 40%. Hotels had empty rooms, offered big discounts, and even gave a free first month. Seaside restaurants ran at 50% capacity, cut staff, and closed early. Golf courses stayed open longer but had no players. South Carolina was known for Southern hospitality. Canadians loved the warm weather, low costs, and friendly culture. But recent laws controlling personal rights and immigration changed that. Now, it feels less open than Canada. At the same time, travel, rental cars, and insurance have become more expensive. Vacations now feel more like a burden. To bring back those good winters, South Carolina must reconnect with its friendly roots. A warm invitation and open attitude are needed. Because if no one walks on the most beautiful beaches, maybe it's not the beaches that change. Maybe it's us. Florida used to welcome over 3.5 million Canadians every year. In some areas, you'd hear more French and English than American accents. But now even the busiest streets are quiet. In the 2024-2025 winter season, Canadian tourists dropped by over 40%. Thousands of vacation apartments are empty. Many resorts gave guests extra months to stay. Some Canadian favorite restaurants in Fort Myers shut down. Mobile home communities once full of Canadians are now overgrown and empty. Florida used to mean safety, comfort, and freedom. But now, things are changing. Healthcare, insurance, housing, and security costs have all gone up. Storms and extreme weather caused by climate change are also making Canadians pick Mexico, Portugal, or stay home. Florida never needed big ads. People came back every year naturally. But now, it risks losing its most valuable thing, human connection. Florida still has sunshine, but it's missing the warmth of human bonds. We remember you. Campaign for Canadians and better policies can help repair this. Because if a place once called paradise feels unwelcoming, maybe that paradise is fading. From California to Florida, from Maine to Arizona, more than 10 states are quietly losing millions of Canadian visitors. People who once called the US their winter home have left. Their silence is turning off the lights in small towns, closing stores, and taking away jobs. This is not just a tourism crisis. It's the risk of losing the friendship between two countries that used to feel like neighbors. Are you living in one of these states? Have you felt this change? Leave a comment if you've noticed that winter doesn't feel the same. And don't forget to subscribe so we can keep sharing the stories that big media often ignores. Stories that are quietly changing everyday life in America. Thanks for watching until the end.